One of our friends, George, recently sent a message saying that he has a project that he's going to begin working on, and he was really excited about it. But he knows that he gives himself a degree of dopamine kick just by talking about the goal. That verbalizing of the goal and the communicating of it is almost like a masturbatory kind of action that gives him this sense of, oh, well, I've achieved something, whilst also having actually achieved nothing. And I think that's a very delicate balance that you need to strike.
Yeah, it's interesting. Sometimes when people talk about projects that they want to achieve, it creates like a form of accountability for them. And so like telling somebody about it, they feel like, oh, I don't want to fall flat on, telling this promise that I made. And so they find it more motivating. But I've often experienced what George is mentioning, where you tell somebody about something and you feel like you did something about it because you're talking about it. Like this is the kind of thing where you have like a business idea, so you work on it on the weekends, and you tell people, oh yeah, I'm like thinking about starting this thing, but you never actually go anywhere. It's just like talking about it or debating like what should the company be named, or what should our business cards look like, or what should the logo be. It provides the illusion of making progress.
Yeah.
It reminds me of this quote. I just saw this quote for the first time the other day from Bob Knight, the famous basketball coach, where he said like, the will to win is not what you need. Like having the will to win is easy. Everybody wants to win. What you need is the will to prepare to win. And I think that is kind of like, it distinguishes a little bit of the difference here. Like, yeah, everybody wants to have a successful business or start some cool project or like do something interesting. But are you actually fascinated with all the aspects of preparing for that, right? Like, it's not writing a book that is like, everybody's like, yeah, it'd be cool to have a best-selling book, but the book is the easy part. Like the harder part, the thing that you really need to be fascinated with is, do you love researching stories? Do you like editing your own writing? Do you like sitting down and writing for, 20 minutes every morning or whatever?
Yeah.
And it's the people who, and this is kind of a strange thing about a lot of areas of life, which is the people who get the best results in a particular area are actually often not the people who are doing it for the results. It's the people who love the process of doing the thing. Like the people who read about early retirement and the best investing strategies and figuring out how to optimize their money. They don't actually need the financial advice a lot of the time. They already have their act together financially. But the reason they have their act together is because they love the process of reading about that stuff and implementing it and utilizing those ideas. And so often the people who need the advice are not the ones who love digging for it. And the ones who love digging for it don't even really need it anymore. But that's the very reason why they don't need it, is because they love the process of it.
Yeah. I suppose that highlights a big difference between people that do things for passion and do things to get a grind or to complete it, something as a task that needs to be fulfilled. Ben Bergeron, again, in Chasing Excellence, touches on this a lot, where he says that the people who love the process will always beat the people who have to force themselves and use willpower to get up and do it, because the people who feel like this is their life and who don't have to reach into that willpower pot to go and do something, that it just comes naturally to them, the same as breathing. I think Katrin David sort of got asked, like, how do you train 7 hours a day and sleep all the time and do all of this sort of stuff? And she said, well, if you gave me any life in the world, this exactly what I am doing right now and what you think is hard is exactly what I would choose to do. And how much easier is it going to be for Katrin Davidsdottir to train 7 hours a day than for someone who hates the gym? Like, it's infinitely more easy. I think you used an example about a basketball coach as well, who said something similar to do with, it's not the players who have the most skill, but the ones who get bored the least with training.
Yeah. It was a weightlifting coach that I had met in some of my training, where he said, I asked him, like, well, what's the difference between the people at the top of the field and the people who just kind of have talent but fizzle out? And he was like, well, certainly like talent and genes and nutrition and all that plays into it. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to who can handle the boredom of doing the same lifts over and over again every day. And I think that's true in so many areas of life. For many people, it feels boring, but for occasionally someone finds a way to love the boredom, to fall in love with it, to make it the thing that's enjoyable to them. And I think the way that I would, just building off of your example of Katrin and kind of like how she loves the process, loves the fact of years from a lot of top athletes. Like it's actually not an obligation to them to live the life, to train the way that they're training. It feels like what they want to do. And in fact, this is exactly the opposite of what you hear from many athletes when they retire. They specifically say that they retire because it starts to feel like an obligation, because it no longer feels fun. So, I think that, the world, this is how I would break this down. So it's not that talent doesn't matter and it's only about passion and motivation and trying hard. Both nature and nurture matter. Both talent and effort make a difference. But in a world of 7 billion people, you can pick any domain you want and you're going to find somebody who is willing to sacrifice everything for that particular area, for that particular domain. You're going to find somebody who is both talented and it doesn't feel like an obligation to them. It just feels great.
And they're a very dangerous individual.
Yes, right. Like that's good luck competing with somebody like that if you feel like you need willpower to make it work, because they're both, even if you're talented, they're as talented as you are and it feels like fun. And so that's like a really hard combination to strike. I always think of Steffi Graf, the famous tennis player. So when she was a kid in Germany, she was part of this study, just randomly. She happened to be part of the study of young German tennis players. And they measured, I think she was maybe 12 to 14, somewhere in that range. And they measured all kinds of things. They measured their physical characteristics, aerobic capacity, strength, explosiveness. And she tested highest on all of those scores. But then they also measured the psychological traits, and she tested highest on competitive desire. It was like, well, it literally doesn't matter if you're as talented as her because she wants it more. And it doesn't matter if you want it as much as her because she's better than you. So that combination is just like a beautiful thing. And I think that the world is it's developing infinitely more niches than it ever did before. This is what the internet is enabling, right? There are more and more little pockets for people to find the thing that's just right for them. And so what's hopeful in my mind is that almost anybody can try to find something like that for themselves, something that they are naturally suited to do, that they tend to be very good at, and that feels like fun to them, that doesn't feel like an obligation. And so what you're really looking to do is you're looking to align your ambition with your ability. And if you have both of those things working for you, then you can really make some progress. So I feel like that's something that, Katrin for her, it happens to be CrossFit. For other famous, Steffi Graf or whatever, like we see there's some of these very visible examples in sports. But there are probably a lot of other examples of people we never have heard their names, but they found their thing too. Yeah. And so you just need to try to figure out where's that niche where my ambition is aligned with my ability. Because I think at the top of pretty much any domain, you find people that are not only well suited and talented, but also well trained. And so you kind of have both, where you match up your effort and your natural ability.